Welcome back to Pittsburgh Living here on KDKA TV. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm your host, Shelley Duffy. In the studio right now with me are Dave Chervenick and Jason Luckasevic from the law firm of Goldberg, Persky White. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
All right, that was said in unison. That was very good, by the way.
That's how we work.
Very good. That's how good you guys are. All right, tell us a little bit about your firm and what you do.
We are a litigation firm here in Pittsburgh. Our offices are right downtown. We do mostly asbestos litigation. In fact, we were one of the first law firms in the country 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago, to file lawsuits for people with lung cancer and mesothelioma and other lung diseases from working with asbestos products in steel mills, power plants, those kind of industrial work sites. We still do that, and that's our main area of focus, but we have evolved over time, and in fact we were the first law firm in the country to sue the National Football League for concussions and people suffering the effects of concussions while they played.
Well, there's so much going on with that now, and we hear so much about that in the news. There's a movie, in fact, out, I believe, with Will Smith. So, I mean, there's a lot of controversy about them. So if we could talk a little bit about how you became the first to sue the NFL.
Sure. It really all started with my friend, Dr. Amalu, who is the doctor that's going to be featured in the movie by Will Smith. My brother and I both grew up in this area. My brother is a forensic pathologist and trained under Dr. Amalu, and I got to know him, and I saw the wrong. It needed righted. Being young professionals in the area, I investigated it, and the rest is sort of history.
Now, when you talk about, you say you investigated it, what do you mean by that? What and the wrongs that needed to be righted?
Sure. You know, at first, the NFL, when Dr. Amalu discovered this and just simply found this disease in the Mike Websters and Terry Longs and Justin Strelzik, one of the things he did is just simply looked at it under a microscope. The NFL quickly responded and said that this was unscientific, it was unfounded. So I looked at that, I started to meet with families, I started to meet with former players, and it hit me instantaneously that there was something wrong with these players, that there was something that wasn't working properly in their brains. And that explained why they were drinking antifreeze. That explains why they thought that they were hearing voices telling them to drive the wrong ways on interstates. So over the years, I've come to understand what this is all about, and have become involved in the Brain Injury Association of Pennsylvania and work as a board member there as well. And
what have you seen? Just if you could briefly explain some of the things that you've seen and what you're hoping to accomplish in the future through that.
You know, just from the player's perspective, unlike many of the other professional sports, the football players have to play 3 or 4 years before they ever qualify for benefits or pension. Otherwise, they're left on their own to find jobs, to find health care, or to use the government systems. So for them, they are really down and out on their luck. They need help. The guys that we're talking about played in the 70s and 80s who had modest contracts at best and only played for 2 or 3 years in the league. It's a lot different than today's athletes that sign guaranteed 4 or 5 year contracts worth many multi-millions.
All right. We want to turn to asbestos because, is that something that you're still seeing lawsuits even today?
Yes. Lung cancer and mesothelioma are the 2 main diseases that we file lawsuits for, and the interesting thing about those diseases are they take 30 to 40 years to develop from the time somebody is first exposed to asbestos. So we help people who were involved in putting asbestos into these work sites in the 1950s, 1960s, up through the 1970s. And the folks that were first exposed in, say, the mid-70s are just now starting to get sick. And it's forecast that the rate of those diseases will remain the same until probably 2020 or 2025, I think it is, before they start to come down.
What would you like to tell viewers about what it is you do and how you can help them?
We would like to tell them in the asbestos world that if you were exposed to asbestos at work, in an industrial setting, whether you handle it yourself or you were around people who were handling it, and you then suffer from lung cancer or mesothelioma, to call us. And even if you smoked, we can help people with lung cancer. The rate is 5% of people who were exposed to, or people who were exposed to asbestos at work have a 5-fold increase in getting lung cancer. People who smoked and were exposed to asbestos have a 50 to 90 time increased risk. So even if you smoked, we can help you.
All right. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you.
That does it for today's show. I'll see you on the next Pittsburgh Living.